Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to contain my review of the latest Summon Showcase. It's another prize showcase, this time around featuring Grimnir and the Rose Queen. That's one Wind Element Dragon and one Wind Element Adventure that'll both be part of the summoning pool going forward on a permanent basis. These adventures are of course associated with the Rage of Kronos event that's happening right now. And I should also point out, Vania is sparkable on this showcase. So a lot has been happening in Dragalia Lost as of late. Of course, we got our new endgame content last week, Yaldabaoth. We also have another limited time event that's running alongside Rage of Kronos, which itself just got Nightmare and Omega Raids opened a couple days ago. But Descent to Eminence is back, so that is an upgrade event. We have double drops on one High Dragon Trial or Agito battle every single day right now for co-op play. Every single chapter of the main campaign has half stamina and double drops, which is excellent for farming up Draconic Essences. This showcase is a prize showcase with free daily summons, so that's pretty exciting. Kamui's Trial is happening, I think starting tomorrow. And we're even getting a Mana Spiral here for Nurse Eileen. So a lot has been going on in Dragalia. It has a tendency to peak at the end and beginning of a month. It's just when the devs often release a lot of new content, and so therefore there's lots to talk about and lots to discuss and make videos over. But as for today, we're mainly focused on the prize showcase, and to be honest, I think that on this one, my verdict is going to be pretty clear and pretty cut and dry. I think that this is a pretty clear skip for most players. If you're a crazy Grimnir fan, go for it. Do your free daily singles. To everybody out there, of course, before you decide whether or not you really want to pull. But I wasn't super impressed with either Grimnir or the Rose Queen, and it may depend on who else you have in your collection, but I find that both are pretty replaceable from what I'm reading of their description. So that is my initial take on this showcase. We know that Fire Emblem is being added to the Event Compendium later this month, so that leaves open a strong possibility that we'll also get rerun banners. And I just think with characters like Tiki and Peony with their special abilities, they're more coveted than what we have on this banner that's going to be available permanently going forward. So I would probably hold off and try save until then, particularly if I was a free-to-play player or I had missed out on those showcases in the past. Even setting those aside, there's always our new Gala adventures we get every month, and this month there is a chance that our Gala remix that we'll likely get after this showcase in the middle of the month, there's a chance that it could have Gala Leonidas. I think it's probably going to be Gala Leaf, but we're starting to run out of Gala Adventures to rerun. It could even be a past Gala Dragon, which also could be a good thing to have on a raid up. So my take on this is that it's a pretty clear skip. Grimnir and Rose Queen look pretty cool and fun to play as, but I don't think that they're going to offer a whole lot from a gameplay standpoint. Of course, with this being a prize showcase, I'll repeat what I often say about prize showcases. You should think of these as an added bonus, but not an incentive to summon on their own. The rates for the best prizes just aren't high enough that I think that should be your primary motivation behind summoning. I think you actually have to want to summon the adventure and dragon that are present, and if that's the case, then yes, the prizes are a nice bonus, but otherwise I don't think they should sway your decision all that much. Alright, let's talk about the adventure Grimnir here and the dragon Rose Queen, starting with Grimnir. So Grimnir says, the mad cyclone Grimnir has arrived, a mysterious young man who wields powerful winds. He claims to be a god of war sent by the Keeper of Fate. He speaks in an overly dramatic fashion, clearly influenced by the poetry and fiction he enjoys, but at his core, he's a good guy. So Grimnir looking really great here. Obviously had a very fun role to play in the event story that's happening right now. And one thing to note about Grimnir that I'm not sure will be pointed out directly in his kit is that Grimnir does have unique basic combos. So he is a lance weapon type, but his basic attacks are a little bit different than that of a standard lance. As for his skills, Eternal Storm deals damage to enemies directly ahead and causes Storm Lash. When the Brewing Storm level 5 effect is active, a more powerful version of this skill will be used. He accumulates Brewing Storm levels through his first ability, so we'll take a look at that in a moment, but essentially it looks like all that is improved here is basically the damage. So It doesn't get any additional types of effects or bonuses, it just does more damage and more hits. And then Full Storm Tempest deals damage to multiple targets and enemies near those targets and draws them together. Decent damage, but a high SP cost, but the fact that it's multiple targets and enemies draws them together is pretty nice. One of the metrics that Yaldabaoth has tested us on that was never really a big consideration in the past. Occasionally in the early days of Dragalia, you would talk about characters like Maribel because of their AoE. AoE was a thing for a very short while when Imperial Onslaught was still difficult, as well as back in the day, challenge battles and facility events like Top Star Trial, those could be difficult. And so at that time, it could matter a character's hit pattern for defeating lots of enemies. Over time, as our adventurers just got stronger, our dragons got stronger, that became less of a real consideration. Yaldabaoth is the first battle in a very long time where it actually matters your hitboxes on your skills, and it's something I hadn't really considered recently when I made a shared skills guide. Prior to this boss, there wasn't a boss where I would say having a shared skill that hits in a wide area is especially important. Now that Yaldabaoth is around, just having adventurers with such skills is pretty beneficial, but the wind element is strong in this regard. So for one, if you have Gala Knot already, Gala Knot, when she goes into her metamorphosis form, her skills can hit a really wide area, as can her basic attacks. So that's a pretty good way of dealing with the foes in Yaldabaoth Master Phase 2, if you're struggling with that. The other option is, of course, Midgardstormer Zero as a dragon. His dragon skill hits the entire map, does lots of hits. That's really excellent for clearing out all of the possible minions on the map, and also has good applications. Both of those adventures, or the adventure and dragon I just talked about, I should say, both of them have good applications against Legend Ciela as well. She has hit count based mechanics for which Midgardstormer Zero is pretty good, and she also is a fight in general in which Gala Knot does a lot of work in. So to me, Grimnir, what makes him special here is basically he can hit a lot of enemies at once, and this seems to be consistent with his unique standard attacks as well. Let's look at Brewing Storm, or Forbidden Power Within, so we can figure out how Brewing Storm works. But first, to touch upon his co-ability and chain co-ability, he does get combo time, which means that this is no longer unique to Mine in the wind element. So if you'd prefer to have the regular Lance co-ability of HP as opposed to Mine skill haste, now you have an option to get combo time that way, or you could stack them together for even more combo time. So it's something a little bit special about him. As far as abilities, Forbidden Power Within 2 grants the user the Brewing Storm effect every time they execute a 100 hit combo or defeat 5 enemies. So you can see that this is really tuned around Yaldabaoth having lots of enemies, but even against Ciela, she does summon a lot of raptors in co-op play, and she summons an okay amount in solo play. This might count the water orbs that she summons that have a hit count tick down. I'm not sure, but if you look back and remember with High Mercury's Trial, technically the bubbles in High Mercury's Trial on Master Difficulty, those technically counted as enemies. So that was one way to sneak in some Slayer strength for adventures like Ronzel. So perhaps some of those types of things, like the crystal arrows that Ciela summons, or those water orbs with the countdown, maybe some of those actually do count as enemies, which could make this easier to execute. 100 hit combos are not going to be that easy, I think, even with Grimnir's unique play pattern and unique basic attacks. Something like an overdamage shared skill could help with this to make it so that every hit you do counts twice as much. But I think considering you want to get this to level 5, that is a pretty steep hill to climb, because you're getting one level for every 100 hit combo or 5 enemies defeated. It's kind of a lot to progress through. So level 1, you increase the damage dealt by the user's attacks by 15% for 60 seconds, and then so on, 20, 25, 30, and then 50 at level 5. And when you have level 5, and only then, is your first skill powered up. I'm not sure if this is, let's see, okay, that's in the third ability. I was going to say, I remember in the trailer seeing something about an an aura or a cyclone around Grimnir himself, but that's accounted for in the third ability, so we'll get to that. Grimnir has freeze res 100%, and Yaldabaoth in phase 2 of Master causes bog, so this is not great. And then finally, Unceasing Cyclone 2 extends the window between hitting an enemy and the combo counter resetting by 2 seconds, and when the Brewing Storm level 5 effect is active, creates a vortex around the user that deals damage to surrounding enemies. So that's what I remember seeing in the trailer or gameplay overview video for him over on Twitter. So this looks okay. I couldn't really tell how high the damage ticks are on this, and it doesn't say here. You do get extra combo time, which thank goodness you have that, because if you have to get up to 500 hit combo before you really get anything going here, it just, if you lose combo at all, that's very punishing, I feel. So all in all, I think that Grimnir, I don't know. I feel like he's not that great of an adventurer, but he has okay enough mods and interesting basic attacks. He's a source of Stormlash, and he hits in a wide AoE type pattern that he's pretty good. I just think that there are other adventurers that can kind of do what he's doing for you already. And phase 2 of Yaldabaoth doesn't seem particularly strenuous mechanics-wise compared to phase 1. I don't think that clearing Master should be a high priority anyway, because it's basically just done for weeklies to get slightly more dragon augments. You don't actually want to farm the Master difficulty of the Sinister Dominion fights. You want to farm Expert and Standard instead. So all in all, I see Grimnir here, and I don't see exactly how he fits in right now. Maybe down the road when we get another Sinister Dominion battle in which the first phase favors wind adventurers, and maybe in that battle the boss causes freeze, and you similarly need to hit a wide area or have a high combo count or something. Like maybe at that point Grimnir gets more relevant, but I don't really see it for now. Anyway, let's move on to Rose Queen. The rose blooms, its crimson petals beckon. So I like her portrait. That's really cool how she's coming out of a plant there, appropriately. A beguiling dragon with the regal aura of a queen who prizes her beauty above all else. Master of rose and briar, she lies in woodland repose behind an impenetrable thorn wall of her own creation. Wow, that was a little bit of a poetic description for her there. Okay, so her skill is Sullen Rose. Deals damage to surrounding enemies and summons 5 enchanted roses. These roses will deal damage to surrounding enemies for 10 seconds before wilting, then disappear after an additional 10 seconds. Destroying a wilted rose will restore HP to the user who destroyed it and counts as having defeated 5 enemies. Very nice. So this is actually similar to a custom character that I designed. In my Q&A video, I shared this character that was like a Pietro alt that I had brainstormed, and I wanted to see more summoning mechanics in Dragalia Lost, as well as make the Slayer's strength ability more relevant. So I had him summon some enemies and you would get a bonus when you KO them. So this actually works really similar, so it's kind of cool to see a design like this come to fruition, and the fact that it's these plants that wilt and then you can attack them to heal, as well as counting as defeating some enemies. It's a tiny heal, but this is a cute mechanic, and I'm glad that we have a dragon like this. I think this is pretty unique. Of course, this itself doesn't cause Stormlash or anything. It's a tiny heal. The roses deal damage over time and can do a lot of hits, so that's kind of sweet. But it does play into Rose Queen's kit here. So she does start off with win 70% strength, which it's hard to find fault in. Even Gala Reborn Zephyr, that's the amount of strength that he has. Of course, he has his strong bonus damage against water foes or neutral element foes as well, which is very significant, of course. But this is clear that we're in a new generation of dragons when you see stuff like this, because back in the day, 60% was the gold standard for any type of dragon. Now that would be considered a bad dragon if they only had 60% strength and nothing else. We've had dragons come out like Gabrielle or Ramiel that show like that isn't really up to date anymore, because you have to have more abilities to stay competitive. So she does have another ability, Slayer Strength 2%. Increases strength by 2% for every 5 enemies defeated up to 5 times per quest. This is just a little bit too slow. I think. Even though every shapeshift, each rose counts as defeating 5 enemies, and she summons 5. So actually, every shapeshift, I guess you could get this, but even then, your 70% strength, from what I've read, this Slayer strength is a visible buff, which when visible buffs work, that will have diminishing returns because you're in a Templar Hope type environment or situation. Like, you have crazy strength buffs in most situations where buffs work because of double buffs, because of the Agito weapon skill. So in that environment, it would probably be better to have the 10% strength on the aura rather than have it be a visible buff, because you're probably going to be over 120% strength buff just naturally by playing with Templar Hopes and so on. But and then on the other hand, in the Sinister Dominion, because this is a visible buff, this gets diminished or dispelled by Curse of Nihility. It gets dispelled, so it doesn't even work there. Of course, Yaldabaoth, if you're in phase 2, Yaldabaoth is not like Lilith with the immediate Curse of Nihility at the start of her transformation. He's a little bit slow on the uptake when it comes to applying Curse of Nihility. Maybe they just decided to become more lenient due to player feedback. So I guess 10% strength is okay. But yeah, if this were like 5% base, that would at least be a little bit more enticing. The 2% and only capping at 10%, it's a visible strength buff. I just don't really see the applications here. It's not the worst dragon just because you're still getting a large amount of strength, and it is a really cool type of skill here. But ultimately, I don't think that this is a reason to summon. And for that reason, I think that this showcase is a skip overall. Rose Queen and Grimnir look cool, liked them in the story. I think that they're sweet characters, but I'm definitely going to skip on this one, and I say that having all of the Fire Emblem characters who have released so far. Let me know your take on the Summon Showcase in the comments below. I'd be curious to hear what you have to say. Otherwise, everyone, that is going to do it for today. Thank you as always for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.